Okay, hello. My name is Shane Brodie. I'm traveling around the country talking to trans people, non-binary people, gender non-conforming people all over the U.S. About their identities, about beliefs, religious, political beliefs, and their relationships, current events, the laws that are being passed or being challenged, that sort of thing. And today I'm in a semi-rural place, I would say, and I have a guest who I contacted a couple of weeks ago. Or she contacted me, and we made a really quick schedule there for an interview, and I'm here and I'm loving it. We're down by kind of the Cape area, which is really lovely. Lots of history out here, and so my guest is going to introduce herself just like every other video, in whatever way she wants to, and then we'll get right into it.
Hi, I'm Judy. I'm 59 years old, and after a very long time of knowing who I was and being an absolute brilliant masker, with the end of my most recent marriage, I decided to come out.
Come out in what way?
It actually all started when
do you have a specific trans identity?
Well, I call myself Judy. Mm-hmm. My middle name is Jude. Mm-hmm. And
there are several cats and dogs in here.
I've been aware of who I've wanted to be probably since I was like maybe 11 or so.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm fortunate because given that I grew up in a kind of a conservative place.
Did you grow up around here?
Not quite. I started out in Connecticut, which was fairly liberal and open, and yeah. I always used to wear my hair long. And
what era was that?
Oh dear,
like the 70s or something.
The early 70s.
Yeah. So long hair was pretty regular.
Kind of in.
Yeah.
And yet,
all the boys I knew kind of had shaggy hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I got a little bit. I remember I used to always dread the first day of school. Because my first name is Christopher, but they would always say the middle name of Jude. And so I would get teased the entire year, Judy, which is maybe one of the reasons why I embraced it when I finally came out. Also because I always liked that my mom chose that name for me, and I didn't want to lose that, and it seemed like... So
yeah, a lot of people often do that. They will take parts of their old name and then have maybe a different translation from something from their ancestry, like Irish or Scottish or something, or they'll take a meaning from their old names and bring it into the new name, or like you did, it's a very similar name. Yeah.
And so I remember very distinctly when we moved from, we used to live outside of Hartford, and we moved to Connecticut. I mean, from Connecticut to Massachusetts, up into Leominster, which was this very jockish football town.
Where is that?
It's in central Mass. It's in Worcester County.
Oh, okay. By Worcester. Okay.
And
yeah, that's kind of the industrial... and more conservative area. Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered, I was a fairly tall person even when I was like 12, and people always used to try to pick fights with me.
Oh, interesting.
And I was always very nonviolent, and I remember eventually I ended up getting the nickname Jesus, which was kind of funny. But
I was kind of the opposite. So I was always the second shortest. And then I was, I don't know if I would say aggressive, but I was, robust, you know. So we're kind of the opposite. So you were tall and maybe softer, and I was very short and robust. I would also get picked on though, because I was so short. So it was easy to beat me up.
Yeah, no. In my case, they all, oh, you're the tall person. I need to beat you up.
That's right. But then you sound like you were very soft in personality. Yeah.
And I eventually, I ended up taking karate.
Oh.
And I took like 3 years of karate and actually got very good at it. And it was all around when I was in like 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I was really starting to kind of understand my identity, and I did something I felt really bad about, which is I stole my mom's clothing and would wear it. And
how would you do that? Like in your room, or?
Yeah, in my room, or the other place I go is I had a 2nd floor bedroom that was above like a sort of a roof. So I would go out and sit on the roof dressed like that.
Okay.
And then eventually I decided that I could sneak down the roof, and so I would walk around sometimes.
Would you do this like at night? Okay.
Yeah,
so you were under the stars and dressing and oh, that sounds sweet.
Yeah, and it excited me and I liked it. It was also kind of scary sometimes because I remember I'd walk along the road and then I was rational enough to realize that, like, oh, if you're dressed like a chick and somebody drives by, that's going to be weird.
Yeah.
And yet I'd always been very good, from all the people that wanted to beat me up, at like learning how to hide.
Yeah.
And
why would you walk down the road at night?
I don't know exactly. It was definitely this paradox. There was a side of me that wanted to be seen, and a side of me that knew that I didn't want to be seen.
Interesting. Yeah, actually I heard an almost exact story from another trans woman. I did not use her interview because unfortunately she had some anti-trans sentiments that she said during our interview, and I couldn't handle that. I'm just not going to include that or her, but her story was her early story was really compelling, so it was really a difficult decision for me to make. But she did the same thing. She dressed and then walked along country roads at night. And so she was seen, but just in a blink of an eye as a car went by or something like that, which is also dangerous as well. A young woman out on the roads late at night is... it
was very similar for me, because I would actually sometimes choose to be seen.
Yeah.
And then if the car slowed down, I would disappear into the bushes. And I already had like my own escape plan and things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's always like a threat of violence somewhere in there, Yeah.
No, and I've been dealing with that forever.
Yeah.
There was a whole year I literally didn't go to the bathroom at school.
Wow.
Because there were people down there that were waiting to beat me up. And so I would literally like hold it all fucking day.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And then go in the woods on the way home. And I had a long walk. Because my walk from where I went to school was probably about 1.5 miles. And there were lots of woods and things on the way, and so there were plenty of trees to find and whatnot.
And you probably knew the woods pretty good. I
know those woods. They've changed now, but it's funny. I still have dreams. And I still know the paths to here and there.
Sure. Sure. I have a similar experience with a town I lived in above the Arctic Circle in Alaska. Like, just I feel myself being there. I feel the winds. I smell the ocean. All that stuff. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, about the only thing that happens sometimes in the dream is where Route 2 used to be. Sometimes instead there's the ocean, which doesn't make any sense for where that was. But
interesting.
There's like this in my dreams. There's this.
Well, you're fairly close to the ocean now.
I am now.
Yeah.
Then I used to love the ocean, but lived far away from it. And there was always like, it was like this channel of almost like a tropical sea. And on the other side were islands.
Okay. Interesting.
And the trail just kind of went along, but it was still the same trail. Everything north of Route 2. I don't know. I'm not sure which side of Route 2 we lived on, but maybe south, was like Leominster. And then on the other side was like, and there were like sometimes dinosaurs swimming around. And
Okay. Well, that sounds like fun.
I've had the dream. I'll have these dreams.
Is it a recurring dream?
It's a recurring place in different dreams.
Okay.
And it's a place I know. So it's usually, a lot of times, if there's something unpleasant happening in the dream, I'll find my way to go there.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful.
And, and what ended up happening was my mother figured out that clothing was missing. And then she asked me, and I was terrified. And it was like both my parents like looming over me. And
were your family, what would you describe them as? Were they conservative or liberal or
very liberal?
Centrist?
My dad was a bank vice president. My mom's an artist. And I have two sisters. One of whom is very conservative. The other whom is, she was the first person to come out in the family. So she's gay and she lives out in LA.
Okay.
But that's Noelle. And we were always super close as kids. Noelle and I used to go fishing together.
Yeah.
We'd go hiking together, exploring together. One of my friends joked that like, oh, Noelle's like the little brother you never had.
Yeah, that's cool. And also, I mean, to have like a queer sibling and a trans sibling, that's interesting.
Oh, I guess my parents had the full set.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. How did you describe your parents politically or religiously?
They're liberal.
They're liberal. Okay.
Yeah, liberal.
Are they religious or are they more secular?
More secular.
Okay.
One of the things I remember that I had a lot of they were Catholic when we started, when I was little, and more kind of Catholic in name only, but to keep the older members of the family happy, they went to church services, so they had to drag me and my sisters to those things. And it must have been miserable for them now that I think back on it, but because I was miserable. And I remember just hating St. Joseph's Church and sitting in this hard pew. And I couldn't even take out my little yellow plastic dinosaurs to play with or anything.
Oh.
And I wouldn't be like loud with them. I just want them on my lap, but I couldn't do that. And my biggest memory is of some old man in a robe saying things that I didn't really understand, but many of which seemed mean.
Yeah.
And then this big image on the wall of this poor man, obviously, nailed to a cross and all these skulls.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just the most horrifying, terrifying place. And so when I was in first grade, it was first grade, I learned I had to go to catechism.
And sorry, I'm not Catholic. What is catechism?
Catechism, or they call it CCD. It's like Christian Catholic doctrine or something.
Is it where you kind of accept the doctrine of the church, or?
It's sort of like class, and the thing that I hated the most about it was it happened on Saturday mornings. And as far as I was concerned, my religion was watching cartoons on Saturday morning.
Right.
We'd get in line, and there'd be this nun, and we would follow her down to the basement. And then this woman that was a mother of one of my friends would be the teacher. And the first time didn't seem so bad. She seemed like a nice woman, and she was very friendly. And we had a homework assignment, and I was like, oh, I really don't like homework. But I always loved to draw even then, and so it was just to draw a picture of the Garden of Eden.
Was this after you had been dressing for a little bit, or is this before?
This was before.
Okay.
Well, not entirely, because I remember when I was 7, I got into my mom's makeup and her nail polish.
Oh, okay.
And I got in a little trouble for that, but not too much. And on the other hand, I'd also gotten in my dad's shaving kit and managed to cut myself fairly badly. And my parents are really pretty chill about things. But
most of my guests have had very conservative parents, so that's nice to hear.
yeah, no, it's definitely not that way with mine.
Yeah.
So the assignment was to draw a picture about the Garden of Eden in this little workbook. And so I thought, oh, that's not so bad. And I was like thinking, I thought it was going to be a terrible day. It's not been such a bad day.
I've cited one of your cats, by the way.
Oh, have you? Oh, it's Angelica. Shh. You don't need to get involved. Yes, everything's good, Bell Bell.
And we're back. We needed refreshments for a moment.
So, so I did my assignment, and I was super into dinosaurs then. So I drew what I thought would be in the Garden of Eden. So there were lots of dinosaurs.
It seems like most kids go through a dinosaur period.
Yeah.
It's like a part of childhood.
No, I never stopped. But,
yeah.
And she was so angry. And she told me there can't be dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden, even though I did a little and I did a caveman and a cavewoman, and she said that was wrong too. And and I was very hurt because I thought they were good drawings, and
yes.
And I thought she was being really mean, and I was conflicted because she was the mom of one of my friends, and I remember thinking, and this was the beginning of a plot. So in my little 7-year-old mind, I thought, all right, this is what I need to do. I'm going to make sure I'm last in line. And the line makes a curve, and there are big tall bushes next to the church. So as the line curves, I'll slip into the bushes. Oh, no. Then I'll wait till the nun sticks her head out and looks around. And then she shuts the door, and I know the door's locked after that. So there's my excuses. Like, I got confused and I was locked out.
So you were trying to play hooky, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And I succeeded. I went across the street, read comic books.
So you sound very contrarian, and not afraid to voice that or act on that.
I think I was raised that way,
Yeah.
and I think my mom particularly noticed that streak in me and decided not to suppress it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's a lot like that too.
How did they deal with the dressing up part?
That was actually brilliant.
Because they sound kind of loving, but also kind of hands off.
Yes, and that could be a double thing in some ways.
Permissive. Some people might say
permissive. Sometimes forgetful. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with all the times I got forgotten at baseball practice or karate or whatnot.
Sure, I understand. Yeah.
But in that particular case, she picked me up and I was upset. And I told her, I said, I'm never going to that again. I will never do that. Do what you will.
Yeah. Was she cool about it?
She was so funny. She said, well, you'll be happy to know we changed religions.
Okay.
And they became Unitarian Universalists, and I was like, what's this bullshit?
All right.
Because I had a bad attitude about religion already.
Unitarianism, Unitarian Universalism, it's very open to whatever you want to do, pretty much.
Sure, but when I was 8, I had no idea what they were talking about.
Oh, of course.
My first taste of religion was really a pretty bitter taste.
Sure.
And she said, no, it's like, we will go to the services, you and your sisters go to class. Oh, it's going to be like CCD again. And she was like, no, you remember the Englishman that you met at the Children's Museum? He's the teacher for the 2nd grade. Great. And you do science.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And it was just wonderful.
Yeah, they have all kinds of things that they do. They even, they have pagans that they allow
I'm
space for.
pagan.
Yeah, and then they have, because some towns in the U.S. don't have Muslim temples, they will have Muslim services there as well, which is just lovely, all kinds of things. There's lots of Buddhists as well.
So you would not believe.
Yeah.
I've even been to youth camp.
Yeah, it's very eclectic.
I took to it like a fish in water.
Great.
And
wonderful.
I'm a member of the local the church in New Bedford now.
Yes.
Yeah. The only reason I'm not more active is because I work on Sundays.
Okay. Yeah.
But that was a wonderful thing. But getting caught, my mom's attitude, her main thing was just, and I was, well, it's really inconvenient that you're taking my clothes.
Oh.
Because I need to find things.
Yes, yes.
And so what I propose is what she said is that you and I will go shopping and we'll get some things for you.
What time period was this?
That would have been 1976.
Wow.
And I was very inspired at that time by, I'd been listening to a lot of Queen, and I loved the way Freddie Mercury dressed. Right. And so I was...
And that was kind of the peak of their career, the mid-70s.
Yeah, that was with the I still when I do karaoke, Killer Queen is one of my favorites.
Even straight people love Queen.
Oh, totally.
I mean, everybody. I don't know anybody that doesn't love Queen.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
I mean,
it's kind of like Dolly Parton. Like, who doesn't love Dolly Parton? You know,
there are probably some hateful people out there, but we don't need to speak of them.
Yeah, you gotta be crazy if you don't love those people.
But I didn't have the courage to do that, and I remember I was left to make that decision
even with
myself.
Your mom's approval. Wow.
I was just afraid because
it sounds like you had some violence in your life too, like at school and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that was in the time when I was afraid to go to the bathroom. I was always being called a sissy anyway, and so I had a very strange way of dealing with that in high school.
Is this something that your mom and you kind of kept talking about, though?
A little bit from time to time, and at that time I was seeing a therapist too. But I remember I reached a sort of point where, because of the karate, I'd become rather confident.
Great.
And I used to do a lot of bicycling, and I was on the track team. Pretty athletic. And I remember I got so frustrated in gym class when we were playing floor hockey. And normally I would just take a hit and just not retaliate. But I remember the kid's name, even his name was Dean, and he was one of my chief tormentors, and he had just cheap shotted me with an elbow.
Oh no.
And he had the puck, so he was fair game. And
hockey is a rough game. I mean, the fighting is kind of part of it. It's built.
The coach used to allow.
Yeah, I mean they call
full contact.
They call it checking. I mean, it's
And I remember Coach Case came over and I was afraid I was in trouble, and he had been noticing everything, and he was a nice man, and he said, "You did exactly what I think you should have done. I wasn't looking when that happened." Okay. And during the course of like 9th and 10th grade.
So it sounds like it was kind of common knowledge that people were kind of tormenting you.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did anybody step in, like any teachers,
Coach Case would kind of.
Okay.
Sometimes teachers would. I used to always complain to the principal. It never went anywhere.
Yeah.
I always used to wear lots of camouflage clothing before I came out.
Sure.
And I've always had this paradox. I want to stand out, but I don't want to be seen.
Were you ever a hunter or?
Fisherman.
Fisherman, okay.
Yeah, and actually
I love fishing too. Oh
I enjoy catching fish. I feel bad for them because lately I've come to the conclusion that I'm hurting another animal for my own pleasure, and there's a side of me that doesn't like that.
But do you sport fish or do you eat them? I mean, do you...
I'll eat them if there's something I'm going to eat.
Okay.
And I always, I kill them very mercifully and very quickly, and I always thank them.
That's ethical. Yeah.
But
I have a little bit of a problem with the sport thing, where it's just like a trophy kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a little trouble with that. And actually, I know enough about fish biology that the last fish you want to take out of the system is a big one.
Yeah.
Unless it's something like a salmon that's going to die anyway.
Yeah. But I grew up around people who did subsistence fishing as well as hunting and gathering up in Alaska and the Northwest Arctic Borough, and so I have nothing against any of that. It's just sometimes sport fishing really, or any kind of sport hunting or fishing kind of rubs me the wrong way.
I have trouble with that as well.
Yeah,
and,
it seems more like ego driven.
Toriel loves it sometimes when if I get a couple of trout, and sometimes I don't cook them soon enough, I'm very fussy.
Yeah.
She loves cooked trout.
Oh,
I remember one day I came in with a couple of trout, and she was ready to eat them right out of the baggie I had them in.
I bet.
But
she looks like she could be a pushy girl too.
Oh, she is a pushy girl. She is the sergeant major of the house. She herds cats.
There's like 275 pounds of dog here. Between the two of them, there's two dogs, two Great Pyrenees.
And I walk them every day, twice a day.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
They're like an upper body workout. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some friends of mine were saying, geez, you're pretty buff for your age. I was like, well, you should see the dogs I walk.
Yeah, right. There's like small horses. Yeah.
But I've learned to control them well. And they're we're all friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you just go down the roads here? Or is there some nice trails around here?
There are nice trails here. Yeah. I have pond frontage here, so I bring them down to where I have a little campsite on the pond, and I build trails in the backyard. And
nice.
There's also along the railroad back there, and I bring them there.
I did notice that the highway that I was on kind of bisected a big pond. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where it is. Yep. Okay, great.
And, so like yesterday, which was a day off, I took them all the way around the pond and into the park behind there. And
yeah.
So when I can, I take them long.
What kind of wildlife do you get around here?
Deer, otters.
Like sea otters?
No, we don't have sea otters here. River otters.
River otters, okay.
She has a passion for rolling in otter poop.
Oh, yeah. My dog had a passion for the moose nuggets.
See, she won't do anything else, even deer nuggets, and we run into those a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
dogs
a lot of
are
room
weird.
for adventure. Oh,
dogs are
no
weird.
Weirder than people.
Yeah.
Just their own kind of weird.
Different kind of weird. I agree.
But yeah, so I went very quickly to having very intense relationships with women.
This is like after high school?
In high school.
In high school.
Oh, God, I almost got a girl pregnant when I was 16. And then I broke up with her because I didn't want to end up in that situation again.
How is your gender identity kind of mixed in with this?
With my very first girlfriend, a little bit of... I think I may have mentioned to her that I thought I was bisexual then.
And it was a little bit trendy in the 70s as well.
I guess.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't quite so frowned on.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a lot of rockers. And,
sure, yeah. David Bowie.
Yeah, the whole glam rock thing. Mm-hmm. Right.
But then we broke up after the near pregnancy thing. And then I started dating someone who was rather more from a half conservative, half super liberal. Mm-hmm. So like her mother's super liberal, her dad's conservative.
Okay.
And eventually married her. So I had a 25-year marriage with my first wife. And two kids.
Oh, wow.
And that marriage started to break down when we were having difficulties, and in counseling, I came out and said that I'm bisexual. And that was unacceptable for her. She stopped going to counseling. And I continued with counseling. When was
this? Relatively recently?
Not that long ago. It was around the time that I was always kind of like the house mom. Okay. My first ex was very much into being a businesswoman. I worked in education and in museums. So I was the one that raised my two kids. Okay. And I did all the house cleaning and all the other, basically all of the traditional female things in the family.
Right.
And when that marriage broke apart, I finally decided that if she's not going to go to counseling and she's not going to accept me, then we can't be married anymore. But I had waited intentionally until my older child was already almost done with college, and my younger child was done with high school.
In order to bring these issues up in your marriage?
I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything to complicate their raising. I kind of felt strongly like, all right, I really don't want to be with this woman anymore. It's clear that she's doesn't find me. She doesn't accept me for who I am,
and you at the time were going to counseling.
I was going to
and
counseling.
talking about these issues.
Yeah, we'd started out in like couples counseling,
Okay.
and then she dropped out of it. So I continued with the counselor, and
So it sounds like she didn't want to grow with you in this direction.
guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's funny because my actual being trans only popped up occasionally during those days. Every now and then I would get this really strong temptation. I'd be looking at her clothes and go, geez, I'd look nice in that. But always it would be, no, I won't do that because she'll be too upset. And I didn't.
But in some ways you were kind of, it sounds like, and it sounds like kind of stereotypical, but you were living a role as somewhat of a wife. You were,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of stereotypical, but it sounds like that was very fulfilling for you.
It was.
Yeah.
And yet it left me without all kinds of skills. Because I left her to do the finances. And
I see.
it was like classic, housewife.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, because when, of people of our generation, like our parents often, well, not your parents maybe, but the boomers, they were getting divorced a lot and women were going to work and that sort of thing. But there was kind of this turmoil of women who maybe did stay at home, and then maybe if they left their husband, like you're saying, they were kind of left with, not a lot of skills and no work history that's outside of the home. So all of these issues are really relevant.
Fortunately, I had been working for a museum at that time, and I worked for many years pretending to be. And I feel like in some ways,
it's interesting though that you as a trans person experienced part of that. It's that kind of blew my mind.
Well, see, I worked in a living history museum for like more than 20 years.
Okay.
And I played various roles, and it was.
What is a living history museum?
It's sort of it's like a museum. It's like an immersive experience.
Oh,
so
okay.
You would
Is
visit
it kind of like Ren Fair kind of thing?
Very much so.
Okay. All right.
And so I would play various roles, and actually I remember that the wardrobe people loved me because for the 17th century, men dressed fabulously.
Sure.
But most of my colleagues were not willing to wear this shit.
Okay.
But I was.
Are you talking about like tights and pantaloons?
Oh, tights, short breeches.
Is it pantaloon or
stockings and garters?
Breeches. Okay.
Breeches, doublets.
Okay.
And
what's a doublet?
A doublet is like a kind of a jacket.
Okay. All right.
And
it's kind of just like a short jacket.
Yeah. A short jacket.
Yeah.
And I would I remember the wardrobe. The lady of wardrobe loved me because she was like, I can always get you to wear like the colors that they really wore then, because most of the guys want to wear like browns and greens, and it's like, oh no, give me that purple with the fucking pink trim. And
that was popular at the time.
In those days that was like, the men were the peacocks in those days.
Okay, yeah.
So I really loved actually. And I feel like in a way, a little bit of myself was able to come out in wearing those clothes and enjoying them. And yet I got so good at playing roles of other people. And I was even explaining this to a friend of mine recently, and it was the perfect thing to get him to shut up on this is just a phase, Chris. And I finally said to him, I said, Jim, all the years that I have played so many different roles and done them so freaking well.
Right.
How is it hard for you to figure out that now that I'm not in a role and I'm being myself, it's actually uncomfortable for me?
Yeah, and it sounds like it's just a half step from what you were already doing, in
a way. In
your home life, and then at the Natural Museum, what is it called?
Living History
Museum. So you're doing a lot of dressing, and it's male dress, but in our current culture, it would be somewhat feminine. It would definitely be showy. And then you're living a kind of a feminine lifestyle at home. Mm-hmm. So really, the identity is just a half step away from that, acknowledging that. Yeah, it sounds like it.
And then when the marriage ended,
I
ended up very quickly taking up with a young woman, much younger than I am.
Okay.
20 years younger than I am, and we fell in love, and she was very accepting of my bisexuality. But I remember a couple of conversations that made me cautious about being trans. And even some things that were just like...
She was uncomfortable with it?
Well, maybe, because I remember I briefly just nudged the subject a little bit.
Okay.
I think we're watching some RuPaul thing.
It's interesting how, like, trans people always have to be careful about other people's feelings.
Yeah.
Like, that keeps coming up, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, I was just loving this RuPaul Drag Race thing, and she was saying, "Oh, you know, that makes sense because you're bi and stuff." And it's like, well, no, I'm not really. This is not about like getting aroused or anything. This is just like I love the clothing and the dancing. And she was like, "Well, you're so masculine, you'd never, you know." And it's weird because that threw up like this mental gate in my own brain. I was like, okay, I just went somewhere where I don't want to go right now.
Okay, so she thought of you as a very masculine
Very
man.
manly masculine man.
Wow.
Yet with lots of feminine qualities because, and there was a codependence there because she had run a business herself. She had the financial skills that I lack.
Sure.
And so she was able to step in.
Okay.
And do that shit. So I fell right back into my comfortable role.
Sure.
Clean the house, do the meals, although there was a little competition because she wanted to be the cook. She's just not a very good cook.
Okay.
And I'm just not into Eastern European food at all. And it's like, sour cream. And
Oh, I love all that stuff.
Nothing against it,
Yeah.
but it's just not my palate.
Sure.
And she was pretty good at like recognizing she could tell like just by the way I would say, "Oh yeah, that's good," and she'd look at me and she'd say, "You don't like it."
Oh, sure.
But
fake enthusiasm is
it's a thin veil at best.
Yes.
And eventually, over the course of COVID, lockdown, and things, I got more and more depressed. She worked out of the house a lot. I was stuck here working from home. By that time, I left the museum. I was working as a park ranger.
Did they close it down, the museum?
The museum I had already left.
Okay.
And she had actually left. She had worked there before me, and she was actually an executive there, but she left over a union problem.
Okay.
Which she was in favor of the union.
In this area, did a lot of things just completely shut down?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So even though I worked for the... I was working for the State Park Service at that point. I spent my whole season here writing text for signs and self-guided tours and things at home.
Okay.
Where she was out working at the post office all the time.
Okay.
So that was a definite kind of thing, and I don't want to get too much into that.
Sure.
But essentially, by the end of that period, I feel like our marriage was so overstrained.
Oh, so you got married to this...
Yeah, I was married with her for about 10 years. Technically, we still are. The divorce is not yet final. But
okay.
about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and we were not getting along well, she finally said, basically, I'm going crazy. I'm afraid I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. Will you grant me a divorce?
Was that stressors from, COVID and all that, or work?
COVID, work, the fact that I was depressed, the fact that we were keeping a small farm here with goats and chickens. And,
oh, really? How much land do you have here?
About an acre and a half.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that was really hurtful. Because it kind of came out of the blue. I didn't really expect her to ask for divorce. I was expecting, well, maybe we should take some time off, this or that. I was like, no, straight to the divorce. And I said, well, can we do some counseling together? And ironically, because she's a licensed MSW, she said, I don't believe in counseling.
Oh, my goodness. That's wild.
I remember I thought about it. I asked her, I said, can I sleep on it? And she had actually asked to sleep in a different bedroom. And
Yeah, marriage is so strange. I mean, the legal requirement, because it's a piece of paper that you sign for the government. It's so strange. I've always thought that was so strange.
yeah, the unraveling part is actually more complicated
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking over the night, I'm like, I can't keep anyone as a prisoner.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. If they want to
So
leave.
if she wants to leave, she wants to leave. If
Right.
she doesn't want to do counseling, then she doesn't want to do counseling.
Yeah. Why would you want to stay? I mean,
Yeah, so the next morning I told her, if this is what you really want, then yes. And, she gave me a sweet super hug. She was practically in tears and happiness, and I wasn't feeling quite so happy about the whole thing at all. And I kind of went into even more of a
yeah.
tailspin of depression
Yeah, and during
and
COVID,
anxiety.
and even now, even though things have opened up, it's still kind of isolating for some people.
Yeah, and that was after that was just a year ago. So I mean, she
So
finally,
as things were opening up.
yeah,
starting to-
and I mean, she left for the last time on Halloween, and she's visited a couple times to pick stuff up, and we're settling the situation amicably. And I remember actually one of the things I said was, I don't want us to end up in a situation where we have to sell the house. We got it at a low mortgage rate, and I don't make as much as you do. I'm going to get killed financially if you just go and live where you're going to go live. And she was cool about that. She says, no, I'm not going to leave you in a situation where that's not so. And we've been meeting with a mediator, and she's very adamant that I'm going to keep the house, and actually that's all.
Great.
So
Yeah.
that's working out, which
Yeah,
lowers
that's
my anxiety level.
great.
But I remember
When did you, I guess, come into a fuller trans identity that is expressed out in public?
I was actually just getting to
Okay,
that.
great.
So I remember really feeling rather adrift.
Because you've been talking a lot about relationships, which is nice. Your family, your two wives, even your dogs and cats. But we haven't gotten to you as much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's get to
And
it.
actually being by myself was very good for me.
What was it? How did you pull out of that depression? Because depression is very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I had a jarring awakening moment because one of
Really?
the things I was trying to do was go out a little more on my own.
Okay.
And on my last day of work, because I was seasonal last year, late November, I decided I would go do karaoke. It was the wrong night for karaoke. I was already a little drunk. I was very tired.
Is that a local queer bar?
Local bar. Not even a queer bar.
Okay,
no.
just a bar. Mm-hmm.
And it was one that she and I had actually gone to from time to time. Mm-hmm. And I decided after finishing one beer that I'm done for the night. And I made a mistake I never make. I know if you take the right turn out of the parking lot, you go onto a one-way street the wrong way. For whatever reason, I took the turn and didn't realize I was going the wrong way on a rotary. Thank goodness, the only thing that happened physically was that somebody beeped at me, hey asshole, you're going the wrong way. I realized the mistake, pulled into a gas station, started to orient myself, and then a state police car came to visit me. And he was pretty angry because he'd just seen the whole thing. And I almost passed the field sobriety, but not quite.
Okay.
And they kept running me through it again and again. And
So you
again.
got
I'm already tired.
You got a DUI.
I ended up with a DUI.
Okay.
Fortunately, I got probation for it, and I took my course. It was right before that class was going to end. maybe a couple weeks left I had. And I had a little extra money, and I was like, I was looking online, and I've always had this thing about boots. But I never,
I noticed that you were wearing really tall boots.
Yeah.
Are those it?
These are not them. These are the second pair. But
because you're really tall, but then those are really tall boots.
And I remember just falling in love with this pair of boots. And I was like, I have the money to buy them. They're on sale. They're $200 off. I'm going to get them.
Oh my goodness.
And so I ordered them. And while I was still waiting for them to come, I remember thinking, oh, geez, I wonder if Nora left a couple of bras around here.
Okay.
Because I had thought that she had. And then I remembered, no, you gave those back. And then I thought...
And during your relationship, you weren't really dressing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Interesting.
And then I thought about it, and I was like, no. You don't want anybody else's stuff. You felt bad about taking your mom's stuff. You need to take yourself out shopping.
That's right.
And
finally.
So I did. And it was, I went, got myself foundation garments because you need those.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I spent all that money on the boots, but I had the zero balance on the charge card. Oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I bought myself my first 2 dresses.
Okay,
and,
great.
And
what appealed to what about them appealed to you?
I love purple.
Okay.
And
so
I
the
love
color
sequins.
and okay.
And I also like pink.
Okay.
And gold. And one of the dresses, actually my most fabulous one.
This sounds like a party dress.
It is. It's definitely, it's this long sequin from top to bottom.
So where would you wear something like that?
Well,
because it doesn't sound like that would go well at the dive bar that you were doing karaoke.
No, but you see, I was, once the boots came, and I got myself all dressed up in my purple dress, and I was still like, oh shit, I've got wigs on order, but they hadn't come yet. But finally, I remember there came a Thursday night, and the wig had come in the mail, and I was like, I've got all the pieces now. And that day, I how they let you know when something's going to arrive sometimes.
Right, they give you notifications.
So I'd already gotten an email that I should expect it.
By the way, throughout all this, did you have any contact with other trans people?
Or very much
maybe
now.
Queer people?
Oh, very much now, but not then.
But not then. Okay.
No.
Even when you were buying your dresses and your wigs and all that.
Other than my sister Noelle, nobody. I had talked to Noelle a little bit.
Wow, that's amazing.
No, I was pretty isolated. And
how about internet? Were you involved in any?
It's on a dating
groups?
site.
Okay.
I'd met a couple of gay guys over the years.
But not like online groups for trans people?
No, not
really?
then.
Wow.
No. Wow. But I decided to, like, while I was at work and I was bored, I was like, well, what kind of gay bars are in the area? I've got a weekend coming up. And
there is at the very tip of the Cape, but that's quite a ways.
Well, and that was the thought. I was like, well, geez, maybe go to Provincetown. And I was like, it's a really long way.
It's a really long way.
Anybody out there? Yeah. And then I remember there's a gay bar in New Bedford.
Okay.
And I read their reviews.
Is that a fairly large town?
New Bedford? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a city.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And it's only like 20 minutes from here.
Yeah, I saw a sign for it. Yeah.
And so I one of the first reviews of the place I read was of a trans woman that came out there for her first time.
Okay, great.
And she said how she'd been treated so wonderfully. And I was like, all right, I can take a risk at this place. It's not far.
Yeah.
I'll get myself dressed up as nicely as I can.
And then Provincetown isn't that far. Not Provincetown.
Super far, but Providence.
Providence, that's what I meant.
Yes, but I can't go to Providence because I'm still on probation. I can't leave the state.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Gotta stay in state.
Oh, okay.
At least until January.
Yeah, and Boston's kind of far off too, and it's and it's so urban. It's such a giant urban place. It's so hard to get across it.
And I had an idea a little bit, because I'm involved in the UU Church in New Bedford anyway, that they had a strong trans community, a gay community, LGBTQ, and I had always been kind of interested in being more involved in those groups, but just never during the marriage and all the other distractions.
So your local UU kind of draws regionally from, great.
Very much so.
Great.
And so I went that first night, and I'm like, all right, you're just going to go have one beer. And if it's creepy or weird or sketchy, you're just going to leave.
Yes.
But it
now,
wasn't
we now
that
have
way.
a snoring dog in the background.
Yes, Snorri
it's
Bell.
so great. It's so great. I love it.
She can tell I'm happy, and so she's comfortable.
I can feel it in the table.
Oh yeah, she's got a good rumble.
She's a big girl.